The Sony A6000 and the Sony A7 III are two of the most popular Sony mirrorless cameras on the market. But is there actually a huge difference between these two cameras? And can the Sony A6000 compete with the Sony A7 III? In this video, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what speaks for the Sony A7 III and what speaks for the Sony A6000. And at the end of this video, guys, I'm also giving you my honest opinion on which camera I would get if I would start as a beginner. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I would say we also get straight into it. And I would say we also start with the Sony A7 III and talk about what speaks for the Sony A7 III. And to begin with, the Sony A7 III is a full-frame mirrorless camera. It has 24 megapixels, it can shoot up to 10 photos per second. It has in-body stabilization, 4K, it has 2 SD card slots, and this camera is a huge autofocus beast. I can just tell you guys, when I was photo shooting with this camera the other day with my good friend Muriel, we had so many photos which were sharp, and also especially the eye autofocus with the Sony A7 III is just amazing. And my final thing, what I love about the Sony A7 III is that it also has the better battery life than with the Sony A6000. So here you can see the Sony A6000 batteries. And I have to be honest here, guys, these ones are fine. I mean, they do their job and you can like do photos and video. But what I realized, especially with the Sony A6000 batteries, is that when you want to like record video, like here in the studio, what I do, you do realize after a while that these batteries drain so quickly. And especially, I just feel like my A6000 overheats in general. So speaking of the Sony A6000 to begin with, what is definitely great about the A6000 is that it's a great camera for what you pay. I mean, you pay around 450 euros and you already get then a 24 megapixel camera with 179 autofocus points, and you can shoot up to 11 photos per second. And of course it doesn't have like 4K and in-body stabilization, but what I just love about this camera is that the money you pay for it, you know, you get so much value out of it, and it's a mirrorless camera. And another great feature about the A6000, in my opinion, what speaks for it is that if you, for example, are on a budget, and if you are also into like budget lenses, with the A6000 you cannot go wrong, because when I started photography with the A6000, I looked for some lenses, and they're actually pretty cheap lenses out there. For example, the Sigma 30mm 1.4, which I'm also using right now for recording, this is my first prime lens I've got, and what I like about it is that it's incredibly sharp and it doesn't break like the bank, because with the Sony A7 III, what I noticed is that when you have it, you have to like pay like another at least 200. I mean, you can get a good lens for 200, like the Nifty 50. But if you want to get a crazy sharp lens with great autofocus, which is, you know, amazing, you do have to like pay to like around 500 to 2000 euros. And the Sony A7 III is already so expensive. So this is something I like a bit more about the A6000, that, you know, the lenses are so cheap. So which camera is now better, the Sony A7 III or the Sony A6000? And to be honest here, guys, the simple answer to this question is definitely the Sony A7 III. The Sony A7 III is definitely much better in many ways. I mean, when we compare specs, I mean, you have with the Sony A7 III 693 autofocus points, you can shoot 4K, you have in-body stabilization, you have 2 SD card slots. So that's why I believe the Sony A7 III is definitely much better. But still, guys, when you think about it, the Sony A6000 is actually still good in 2021. I mean, when you think about it, you pay around 1/4 of the price from the Sony A7 III, and you know, you have 24 megapixels, you have 11 photos per second, you have 179 autofocus points. And I mean, there are some flaws about the A6000. I mean, I just wish that there would be in-body stabilization and 4K, but we still have to remember that this camera has been released in 2014, so this camera is a bit older than the Sony A7 III. But still, in my whole experience with like photo shooting with this camera, I had no problem at all. Like, I love photo shooting with this camera, and like I said, I have a special relationship also to this camera, because I just feel like You know, it's mirrorless, it's good, it's on a good budget, you can take it everywhere with you. So that's why I went for the Sony A6000, because it's a great budget camera, especially for beginners. It's a great entry. And you know, you always have to also ask yourself, guys, do you really need to go full frame, or do you really need to go for the Sony A7 III? Because you pay around, you know, triple the price from the Sony A6000. So just make sure, guys, you don't go into debt that, you know, you have to get something like a credit or something, and then you have like so much money to pay off. So always remember, guys, always think about what you can afford and what can you get, because, you know, I have done some photos with the A7 III and it was amazing. But at the end of the day, it's behind the person behind the camera. And you know, you can have the best camera in the world, but you know, if you don't, you know, think about compositions, and if you are not creative, you know, or if you don't, you know, push yourself, you won't get far. So you can still do great photos, in my opinion, with the A6000, and you can definitely do that also for the next 1 or 2 years. I mean, it's still great in my opinion, and it's a great camera if you're just starting out, and I love it so much. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and also if you want to see more content from the Sony A7 III and Sony A6000, you can definitely also check out Muriel's photoshoot behind the scenes and Michelle's photoshoot behind the scenes on the top left. And also one last question to you guys, what camera do you use at the moment? Let me know in the comments down below. And guys, thank you so much again for watching, take care of yourself, and see you next time. Bye.